Welcome back to another explainer. Today, we're unpacking a piece of history that, honestly, almost always gets left out of our standard textbooks. We're talking about the hidden origins of modern military rocketry. It's a story packed with incredible engineering, surprising historical pivots, and a massive technological legacy that's literally hiding in plain sight. We are going to explore the forgotten science of Mysore, and specifically the legendary Iron Fire developed by Tipu Sultan and his father Haider Ali. To kick things off, I want you to really think about this question. Where was the modern rocket actually born? I mean, when we think of high-tech rocketry, our minds almost instantly jump to places like NASA or maybe SpaceX, right? We naturally picture 20th century laboratories, Cold War space races, and brilliant scientists in white coats. But what if I told you that the foundational blueprint for modern missile technology didn't originate in a modern lab at all? What if the true genesis of this technology was actually in the heart of Karnataka, India, over 200 years ago? Let's transport ourselves back in time for just a second. Picture a dark, chaotic 18th century battlefield. The air is super thick, and you can smell the sharp, acrid scent of gunpowder all around you. This quote sets the scene perfectly. "I am the Sultan of Mysore. Today, I will show you the fire that shook the British throne and the iron rockets that were decades ahead of their time." Just imagine hearing the deafening roar of the world's first true war rockets as they suddenly ignite, lighting up the night sky and flying fiercely against the lines of British redcoats. It is an absolutely stunning, cinematic moment in history. Okay, let's dive into this. Section 1, the modern rocket myth. Moving right along to Section 2, the iron casing innovation. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the stark contrast between these two eras of weaponry. Before Tipu Sultan and Haider Ali, rockets were mostly constructed out of wood or bamboo. They were essentially just glorified fireworks. Sure, they might scare a horse or cause a minor distraction, but they really didn't do much real damage. But then, the Mysore army introduced metal-cased rockets. This single, massive shift from organic material to iron completely rewrote the rules of engagement. So, let's look at the basic physics here for a second. Why does iron change everything? Well, by replacing bamboo with a sturdy iron casing, the engineers in Mysore could pack in a significantly larger amount of gunpowder. But more importantly, the metal shell allowed for a much higher internal pressure to build up before the exhaust was forced out. This meant that the rocket didn't just burst or fizzle out like the old wooden ones. It propelled forward with an unprecedented, devastating thrust. It was a real game changer. So the crucial point is this staggering number, 2 kilometers. Because of that high internal pressure and the sturdy metal casing, these iron rockets could fly distances of over 2 kilometers. Think about that for a second. We are talking about the late 1700s. To have a projectile that could cover that kind of distance and hit enemy lines with such massive explosive force meant that these weapons were, for sure, decades ahead of their time. Section 3. Fire in the Sky. Try to put yourself in the heavy leather boots of a British soldier at that time. You're trained to face traditional cannons and muskets, relying on entirely predictable reload times. Then, out of nowhere, the night sky is illuminated by these screaming iron tubes. It wasn't just the massive explosive force that decimated the ranks, it was the devastating psychological warfare. The speed, the completely erratic flight paths, and the terrifying roar of these rockets were unlike absolutely anything the West had ever encountered. In those early battles, the British Redcoats had zero tactical answer for this screaming psychological warfare. None at all. Which brings us to Section 4, the technology seizure. Let's move to and see how this builds into a global phenomenon. In Step 1, Seringapatam finally falls. When the British breached the city, they didn't just take land and gold. In Step 2, they recognized the immense value of this advanced weaponry and actually seized the physical rockets and designs. Crucially, in Step 3, they shift this technology all the way back to England, where scientists like William Congreve intensely reverse-engineered them. And this directly led to Step 4, the creation of the Congreve rockets, which were later deployed in the Napoleonic Wars in the War of 1812. It's a direct, unbroken line of technological transfer. And finally, Section 5, a hidden global legacy. And this brilliantly illustrates the mind-blowing modern connection we still have today. When Americans sing about the rocket's red glare in their national anthem, which was written during the War of 1812, they are literally singing about the Congreve rockets. And as we've just mapped out, those Congreve rockets are direct descendants of the seized technology from India. So the very symbols of modern rocketry and iconic historical moments trace their technological DNA straight back to the 18th century workshops of Mysore and the Iron Fire of Tipu Sultan. It is incredibly humbling to realize that the foundations of space exploration and modern military technology were laid over 2 centuries ago by brilliant engineers who are just too often left out of the spotlight. History is absolutely packed with these hidden gems, and sometimes we just need to look a little closer at the sources to realize how far ahead of their time our ancestors really were. If you found this explainer as fascinating as I did, please hit that like button. It really helps more focused learners find this content. And I genuinely want to hear from you. What other forgotten technologies from history should we explore next? Drop your ideas in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss our next deep dive into the fascinating structures of history. Thanks for learning with me today, and I'll see you in the next one.